The ballroom shimmered with golden light, laughter, and the clinking of expensive glasses, a world where designer suits and glittering gowns sparkled like stars. But in the middle of that perfection stood a man who clearly didn't belong. His tie was borrowed, his shoes were scuffed, and his hands, though clean, bore the marks of hard labor. His name was Ethan Cole, a single father who had worked 2 jobs just to afford the cheap ticket that would allow him to stand among the wealthy, hoping for a chance that could change his little girl's life. He wasn't there for glamour. He wasn't there for attention. He was there because his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, needed surgery, and the Charity Gala tonight promised to fund medical care for children in need. But as Ethan moved through the crowd, the stares followed. Whispers rose like smoke. Some laughed quietly. Others tilted their glasses and smiled at his plain jacket. A woman in diamonds sneered to her friend. "He looks like he took a wrong turn on the way to the service door." Ethan heard it, pretended he didn't, and forced a smile that hurt more than any wound he'd ever known. Yet behind that smile lived a father's love, fierce, unwavering, unbreakable. The night went on. A charity auction began. Items were presented, rare paintings, luxury vacations, fine jewelry. Each bid climbing higher, echoing the wealth and power in the room. Ethan stood quietly at the back, clutching the picture of his daughter he carried everywhere. He wasn't there to bid. He couldn't even afford the parking fee outside, but he was hoping maybe someone would notice his letter, maybe someone would care. Then the hostess stepped onto the stage. She was elegant, radiant, her presence commanding every eye in the room. Her name was Isabella Royce, a billionaire heiress known for her beauty and her heart, the kind of woman who could silence a crowd just by smiling. Yet tonight, her smile seemed softer, sadder, as if she was searching for something money could never buy. When the host announced the final auction, a dance with our hostess, Miss Isabella Royce, laughter and excitement filled the air. The bids started high, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. Voices shouted playfully, champagne glasses raised. But Isabella's eyes, scanning the crowd, suddenly froze on Ethan. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't bidding. He was just watching from the shadows, holding that photograph of Lily close. Something in his face, the quiet strength, the pain he tried to hide, struck her heart in a way she couldn't explain. And then she did something that silenced the room. $100,000, Isabella said, her voice calm but firm. "And I choose him." Every head turned. The crowd gasped. Ethan looked around, certain she was talking about someone else. But Isabella's gaze never wavered. She smiled. Not a glamorous smile for cameras, but a genuine one, and nodded toward him. The whispers began again, sharper this time. Is she serious? Him? Why would she? But Isabella didn't care. She walked straight to Ethan, offered her hand and whispered, "Would you give me this dance?" His hands trembled as he took hers. The music began, soft, slow, filled with emotion. As they danced, the ballroom disappeared. For the first time in years, Ethan didn't feel small. He didn't feel invisible, he felt seen. When the song ended, the crowd's applause was hesitant, confused, even mocking in parts, but Isabella didn't let go of his hand. "Mr. Cole," she said, addressing him publicly, "you may not have the fortune these people flaunt, but tonight you reminded me what real strength looks like." Ethan didn't know what to say. His throat closed. His eyes glistened. For a man who had lost everything, his wife, his dreams, his peace, this moment felt like light after a storm. That night didn't end with money, but it ended with something much greater, connection. And it was just the beginning. The next morning, Ethan woke up to a world that suddenly cared about his story. The news had spread like wildfire. Billionaire Hostess chooses unknown single father at gala. Cameras waited outside his tiny apartment. Strangers sent letters. People wanted to know who this man was, why Isabella had chosen him. But the attention wasn't easy. The same people who mocked him last night now pretended to support him. Reporters wanted drama, not truth. They asked if he was using pity to gain fame, if Isabella's act was a publicity stunt. Ethan hated it, the lies, the noise. He didn't want fame. He wanted to save his daughter, and somewhere far from the flashing lights, Isabella was facing her own battle. Her family, the Royce dynasty, didn't approve of what she had done. "You humiliated our name for a man you barely know," her father roared. But Isabella didn't flinch. "I saw something real," she said softly, "and I won't apologize for that." Days passed. Then came the call that would change Ethan's life again. Isabella had arranged a meeting. Not for a dance, not for publicity, but to talk about Lily. She had read Ethan's letter, the one he'd left at the donation table. When he arrived at her office, Ethan stood awkwardly by the door, clutching the same photo. Isabella smiled warmly. "She's beautiful," she said, pointing to the picture. "Tell me about her." Ethan told her everything: the laughter, the bedtime stories, the hospital nights, the promise he made to his late wife that he'd never give up. His voice broke, but his resolve didn't. Isabella listened silently, her eyes shimmering. Then she handed him an envelope. "This isn't charity," she said. "It's hope for her." Inside was a check enough to cover Lily's entire surgery and recovery. Ethan froze. I can't take this. I don't want your pity." "It's not pity," Isabella replied gently. "It's love. Maybe not the kind you expect, but the kind that believes you deserve a chance." Tears filled his eyes. For the first time, he didn't feel alone in the fight. Weeks later, Lily's surgery was a success. She laughed again, brighter than ever. Ethan sat by her hospital bed, holding her tiny hand, whispering a silent thank you to the woman who had seen worth where others saw weakness. And then, one evening, as he walked out of the hospital, he saw Isabella waiting by her car. "How's our brave girl?" she asked. "She's going to be fine," he smiled. "Because of you." "No," Isabella said softly, stepping closer. "Because of you, Ethan. You never stopped believing, and that's what love really is." The city lights flickered behind them. In that moment, something passed between them. Not the glamour of wealth, but the quiet power of connection, of two souls who had saved each other in ways words couldn't describe. Months later, the same charity gala was held again. This time, Ethan was invited. Not as a guest who didn't belong, but as a speaker. He stood on stage, wearing a simple suit and holding Lily's hand. He looked out at the crowd and said, "Last year, I was laughed at in this very room. But tonight, I stand here to tell you, kindness can change a life. One dance, one act of compassion, can save more than just a person. It can save hope." The applause that followed wasn't forced or polite. It was real, thunderous, heartfelt. Isabella watched from the front row, smiling with tears in her eyes. As the lights dimmed and the night ended, Ethan turned to Lily and whispered, "You see, sweetheart, sometimes love doesn't start with roses or fairy tales. Sometimes begins with a single act of courage and a dance that changes everything." And that's how a single dad, once mocked by the world, found love not in a ballroom, but in the heart of the woman who saw his worth before anyone else did, proving that sometimes life's most beautiful miracles begin when you least expect them.